Proverbs chapter 16 as we continue our study through the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 16. Today we're going to look at verses 27 through 30. A scoundrel, it's an interesting word, isn't it? A scoundrel plots evil, and on their lips it is like a scorching fire. A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. A violent person entices their neighbor and leads them down a path that is not good. Whoever winks with their eye is plotting perversity. Whoever purses their lips is bent on evil. Now, for some of us, I need to go on to the first part of the verse 31. Gray hair is a crown of splendor, just so you know. But in these verses, 27 through 30, different types of evil, wicked people are described. And it was like, well, we need to dig into these verses and see what these kinds of people are. But I didn't want to preach a sermon just on, here are evil people, stay away from them. And so, and I think it was because you all are praying for me as I work through Proverbs. I had an idea, I think it came from God, that said, well, look at the characteristics of these evil people, and then think about the opposite characteristics, and challenge us on which one we're going to be. What kind of people are we going to be? Are we going to be the evil people that Solomon describes here in these verses, or are we going to turn that around and be positive in our life for the Lord? Verse 27, a scoundrel, it's an interesting word. It literally means a worthless person, a godless person. Plots, and that word means digs up, evil. And on their lips is like a scorching fire. Now, that phrase, he plots evil or he digs up evil, some people think it means that he's digging a pit for you to fall into. And you've probably known people like that who manipulated things and, set you up for a fall. And then other people think that it means he keeps digging until he finds some evil. And you've probably known people like that. We see a lot of that going on in our world today. Just keep digging until you find something. Well, Solomon says that's what a scoundrel is. It's somebody who keeps digging up evil. And whichever of those applications is correct, or both, whether it's they dig a pit for you or they're digging up evil, the point is they're not casual about this. They are not just malicious people. They work hard to dig up evil. It's like their job in life is to dig up evil. They work hard at it. He's not casual about it, and he's not casual when he finds out about it, because on his lips it's like a scorching fire. He's going to tell everybody he can what this evil is that he has discovered. That is very similar to what verse 30 says. Whoever winks with their eyes is plotting perversity, and whoever purses their lips is bent on evil. That verse I don't understand what that is, some say, well, when people are winking, they're up to no good or something. But I found that most scholars think that the phrases he's using indicates this is a person. Have you ever been deep in thought and your eyes are kind of scrunched up and you're kind of biting your lips because you're trying to come up with an answer to something? That seems to be the picture here. The idea is that this is someone who is in deep thought about how they can bring about evil. Their lips are squinched up, their lips are pursed, and they're in deep thought, desperately trying to figure out how to do evil. So you've got these two verses that talk about people who work hard at trying to find evil and planning evil. So instead of that, why don't we plot or plan good? Instead of spending time thinking about how we can cause trouble, why don't we spend time thinking about how we can bring about good and how we can minister good to the people in our lives? And I think I put these verses in your notes. I know it's small print, but I had to get them on there. Man, you can look on the screen and see it in a little bigger print. Proverbs 3. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Don't say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you, when you already have it with you. Galatians 6, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 20, deceit is in the hearts of those who plot evil, but those who promote peace have joy. The Message paraphrase of that verse is, peace planning brings joy to the planner. I like that. Because that verse, Proverbs 12:20, basically sums up what we're trying to say in this point. Instead of plotting evil, instead of trying to deceive people and dig pits for people, let's promote peace. Let's plan good. Let's promote good. The word peace, you probably know the Hebrew word, it's shalom. But it means more than peace. It means well-being, completeness, wholeness, living in harmony. And the word promote, promoting peace, means to plan it, to put a purpose behind it, to conspire. It's kind of interesting. He's talking about a conspiracy of peace, a conspiracy of shalom. We have heard the phrase in recent years, random acts of kindness. And there's nothing wrong with random acts of kindness. But what about planning acts of kindness? What about setting out in your day thinking, what can I do to help the people in my life? What can I do to minister good and peace to the people in my life? How can I plan to do this? When God brings somebody to your mind, why not say, Lord, help me understand a creative way that I can plan how to bless this person today. I heard Victoria doing this one night. We were talking about work, and she said, so-and-so, I don't even remember who it was, so-and-so is having a rough day right now. They're going through a rough patch. I'm going to bring them some chocolate tomorrow. That's how you bless people. In fact, the root meaning of shalom is chocolate. You know, there's something about chocolate that brings you well-being and peace and wholeness, right? But that's an illustration. Donna said the other day, she said, I'm going to get some greeting cards, some sympathy cards and get well cards, so that I'll have them so that when I hear of somebody going through a difficult time, I can send them a card. You probably know what it feels like when you go to the mailbox when you're having a rough time and there's a card of somebody saying, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. That's planning how you can bless somebody. You can do that with a text. You can do that with an email. You can do that. When we were having a real challenge in our lives several years ago, we had gone out to supper and come back, and there was an arrangement of flowers at our door that somebody had brought by. Just want you to know we're thinking about you. Those things, those take some planning. Those take some efforts. And so instead of being one of those people that plot evil, let's be one of those people that plot good. Let's ask God to give us some creative ideas on how we can, on purpose, bless the people in our lives. There's an old a saying that is attributed to many different people, but most people think it came from a Quaker missionary named Stephen Grillet. That little saying, I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do or any kindness I can show to human beings, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Do it now. Verse 28, the second kind of evil person in this passage. He calls them a perverse person. The word means somebody who's dishonest, somebody who's deceitful, somebody who's a troublemaker. Stirs up conflict, stirs up seeds of strife, stirs up quarreling and contentions. And a gossip, some translations use the word whisperer, separates close friends. Well, I was digging into this word perverse, because that's not really a word we use much in our society today. And I found that it means somebody who turns a story over to misrepresent things to make themselves look better. You probably know somebody like that, who just tells you part of the story, the part that makes them look good, and doesn't tell you the rest of the story. And so what Solomon is saying here, there are people who deliberately set out to cause harm. They deliberately misrepresent things to cause division and conflict between even close friends. Proverbs 20:19 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. Gossips are skillful people. They have a way of worming themselves in to their relationship with you. They always talk, very complimentary, very positive toward you, and they kind of worm their way into your confidence. And then gradually they start talking about other people in a negative way. And often it's about your friends. And there seems to be it's almost a strategy that, you remember in junior high, well, if she's my friend, she can't be your friend. It's that, you're going to be my friend. And so therefore, I have to diminish your other friends in your eyes. And so I'm going to try to spread things. I'm going to try to cause you trouble with your friends. I'm going to try to cause you to doubt people that you used to trust. And I'm going to just tear things apart. Now, everybody in this room have lived long enough to know that if people are telling secrets to you, they're telling secrets about you, right? If they're gossiping to you about somebody else, they're gossiping to other people about you. And it is inevitable that, as Solomon says, avoid anybody who talks too much, because the more you talk, the more things come out that shouldn't. In World War II, the intelligence community was more human intelligence, and so more people knew things about ship movements and troop movements, and they put together a campaign to try to encourage people, don't say everything you know. Don't talk about everything you know. I remember when I was working with Mike out at SRS, one of the things they told us is, when you leave the site, put your badge away. Because if you just think about, and you're not thinking, and you're wearing your badge and you're out somewhere, you never know who's going to be eavesdropping on what you're saying. Your badge is going to make them a little more alert that you work in a secure place, and they're going to want to try to learn something. So put it up, put it away. And in World War II, they said, if you know things about our ship movements and things, don't say anything about it. And that's where the saying, loose lips sink ships, comes from. Because they said, look, loose tongues can cause a lot of trouble. And so they said, please, don't, there's something about us when we know something we want to tell other people, because I know, something, and so they said, be careful about that. Proverbs 10:19, where there are many words, transgression is unavoidable, but he who restrains his lips is wise. I saw something on Facebook a while back, a guy with one of these, big eye faces, and he says, you have just told me every negative thing about all the people we know, and now you ask me how I'm doing? I am fantastic. Thank you very much. So, yeah, be careful who you tell what. So instead of spreading conflict, let's spread peace. Instead of being one of those people that, did you know, and separates close friends, let's be a person that brings peace. Psalm 34. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace. That word means search it out, work for it, and pursue it. Run after it. We are to be the kind of people that make an effort to bring peace into our world. Hebrews 12:14. Make every effort to live at peace with everyone. And I know what you're saying, but you don't know so-and-so. They're impossible to be at peace with. Yeah, there are some people that it's impossible to be at peace with. Even Paul had people in his life he could not be at peace with, which is why, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and I'm so glad he inspired him to write this, Romans 12:18, if it is possible, and then in case we missed it, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. There are just some people who will not be at peace with you. Paul says you're not responsible for them. You do your part to be at peace. Leave the rest of it up to God. So instead of spreading conflict, let's try our best with God's help to be a person that brings peace, that lessens tension instead of intensifying it, that lessens a person's stress instead of intensifying it. And then in verse 29, he introduces us to a third type of evil person. He calls them a violent person. The word literally means a tyrant or someone who oppresses someone, entices or deceives their neighbor, and leads them down a course of life that is not good. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting way of saying it. You know, an evil person deceives somebody into doing something that's not good. Well, that doesn't sound all that bad. And then I found out that I just have to study people that know Hebrew. I'm not familiar with the Hebrew language. That is a grammatical tool in the Hebrew language of underestimating something to kind of bring it out, to make it a point. And there's a TV show called Scorpion, and there are a bunch of geniuses that save the world every week. It's an amazing thing. But almost every episode, there comes a point where they think they have the problem fixed, and then they realize they don't have the problem fixed. And it's kind of like, this thing that we made to fix the problem is now slowly sucking all of the oxygen out of the atmosphere, and we've got 24 hours or everything's going to die. And there's a character on that show, her name is Happy, and she'll just say, not good. Well, that's kind of what Solomon is doing here. He's saying a wicked person leads you down a path that's not good. So instead, and you know there are people like that. You may have had some people in your life who've led you down some paths that were not good. How important it is for us, instead of being that kind of a person, to be the kind of people that lead others to good and ultimately to God. So I was thinking about that. Instead of leading people down a path of not good, let's lead people down a path of good. Well, how do you do that? And that's one of those ideas where you can just go everywhere preaching the gospel about that. But it seems like, you know, the concise way of leading people on a path that's good is what Jesus tells us in Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, when he calls us the salt of the earth and the light of the world. If we will be salt and light, we will be leading people down the path of good and to God. You can email Mike and he will dig up the sermon archive for you if you want the sermon from Matthew chapter 5 on this passage. But just a couple of things about salt and light as it relates to leading people toward God and good. Salt flavors. Job 6:6 is tasteless food eaten without salt. We had a guy in our church one time who had some serious heart problems, and they told him he could not have salt anymore, and he had to have one of these salt substitutes. And he told me after his first meal with that salt substitute, I would rather die. He said, I need my salt. So we understand that salt flavors. There needs to be about our lives something that brings flavor. Something that, when I think about salt flavoring, I think about the joy of the Lord is our strength. There should be something about us that brings a positive atmosphere, that brings a flavor. I used to have a sign up back when I was young and more smart alecky than I am now. Old age has taken some of that away from me. I used to have a sign in my office that says, everybody brings joy to this room. Some when they enter, some when they leave. And we know people like that. Let's be the people that bring joy when we enter. The joy of the Lord, salt bringing flavor. I heard a story of back in the old days before churches were air conditioned. This old country church had the windows up and it was a Sunday night, and a couple little neighborhood boys were running around and said, I wonder what's going on in there. And the windows were too high up for them to see in. And so one of them got on his hands and knees and the other guy jumped up on his back and peered in the window. And the kid on the ground says, what are they doing in there? And the other kid looking in the window says, I don't know, but they don't seem to be enjoying it. We need the joy of the Lord. We need the flavoring of the Lord. Oliver Wendell Holmes is said to have said, I might have entered the ministry if certain clergymen I knew had not looked and acted so much like undertakers. We need to have the joy of the Lord. Salt flavors, and salt creates thirst. Have you ever had food that was too salty and you just, man, you had to get something to drink? Salt creates thirst. If we're going to lead people down the path of good and to God, there needs to be about something about us that creates a thirst for the things of God. To do that, for salt to be effective, it has to be out of the salt shaker. And years ago, one of the very key books that influenced my life in the area of evangelism was a book called Out of the Salt Shaker and Into the World. And the person said, and I've used it ever since then, is, we're the salt of the earth. The salt shaker is like the church building, and we gather in the salt shaker, and we can talk about how beautiful the salt shaker is, and how, it has this motif, and it fits in this decoration, and it does this and this, and how gorgeous it is, and we can study the properties of salt, and we can talk about but salt does no good. If my food needs salt, and the salt shaker is sitting on the table, doesn't do me a lick of good until that salt gets out of the shaker and onto my food. And if we're going to create thirst in the world, we have to be in the world. And so God has us build relationships and have relationships socially and work, and as we go through our days, let's ask God to help us be salt in those situations, to bring flavor, to live our lives in such a way so that people say, those are nice people. I wonder what makes them like that. And one of these days, you may actually have them ask you, and you have the opportunity to talk to them about the Lord. So ask God, who can I get closer to flavor their life and to bring some thirst for God into them? But then Jesus also says in Matthew 5, we're the light of the world. And he tells us, let your light so shine before men that two things will happen. They will see your good deeds. Well, I thought we weren't supposed to show off. No, you're not showing off. You're letting your light shine. As you let your light shine, they will see your good deeds. That word good is an interesting word. It means beautiful, attractive, lovely. What Jesus is saying there is, live in such a way so that people are attracted to your life. That the light of God is shining through you. When they see your life, when they see the goodness, the attractiveness of how you live your life, they will give God the credit. That's interesting. It may take them a while to figure out the beauty of your life, but they'll give God the credit. It's an incredible concept. Living our life in such a way, instead of leading people down a path that's not good, let's lead people the path that is good, the path that ultimately will lead them to God, by being the salt of the earth, by being the light of the world, letting God use us to bring peace and joy to their lives. That's the influence we can have. We can create a thirst for God. We can point people to God. We can lead them out of darkness into his light. So what kind of person will you be? We have a choice every day. Let's make these three commitments, shall we, with God's help? Number one, I will plan to do kindness to the people in my life. I will ask God to show me, Lord, who is it in my life that needs some kindness? And what can I do to show them that kindness? Second, Lord, as much as it depends on me, as best as I can, I'm going to do my best to be a peacemaker, to live at peace. And then third, Lord, with your help, I will live my life in such a way that attracts people to God. Let's be that kind of person. Father, our world sees and knows too much of a false Christianity, of people who call themselves Christians but do not live the Christian life. And I pray that you would help us, Father, that we would truly allow the beauty of Jesus to be seen in us, that your Spirit will flow through us and then you will flow out from us, helping others to see Christ. May our lives be lived in such a way that would cause others to feel peace, to feel joy, and to maybe not even know what it is, but to be drawn to you and to maybe begin or accelerate their search for you. Lord, this coming into the Christmas season now, when everybody's singing about Jesus and talking about Christmas, help us, Father, to be alert to ways that we can bring a blessing to others, where we can remind people in a positive way of what Christmas really is all about. May we live our lives to bring honor to you and to draw others to you. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and bring you his peace now and evermore. Amen. God bless you. You're dismissed. Thanks for coming out today.